Okay, so in this video, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys exactly when the best times during the year is to hire a physical therapy provider. So biggest thing that we need to understand is that there's two big hiring seasons. Now, first hiring season is going to happen in the fall, and the other hiring season is going to happen in the spring, okay? So you guys might be thinking like, well, what does he mean by that? A hiring season is a time of the year that there's a lot of supply of physical therapists coming through, but the demand isn't as high, which if you think about it is that like general economics is if you have a lot of demand and very little supply, that's where we start to see increases in salaries. We see people competing against like really high sign-on bonuses and PTO. What I'm about to show you here are gonna be there's 4 hiring seasons throughout the year that if you guys have ads out and you guys plan for this, there's a really good chance you'll be able to find a really nice A player to join your team without breaking the bank. So here's what this looks like. The fall, there's gonna be 2 test dates. Primarily, there's gonna be a test date in October. And when I say the test date, this is the national board exam. The other one is going to be in January. So these are for the fall semester students. The other ones are gonna be in the spring. So if we're looking at this, we need to understand that there's going to be a test date in April, and then the other test date is going to be in July. One thing you need to understand is with all the students throughout the whole United States is that 20% of most programs are graduating in the fall and 80% of programs are graduating in the spring. So if we're looking at this thing and you had for every 1,000 students, you have 200 of them are gonna be graduating in the fall, and then you have about 800 that are going to be graduating in the spring for every 1,000 students. Now, with that being said, we're gonna take this down into a couple of different buckets here. The first one is going to be October. Now, of these 200 students, of this 20% are gonna take their board exam in October, and then 80% are gonna take their board exam in January. The reason why we mention this is because if students are taking their board exam in October, these are usually like your type A's, you know, hey, I wanna hurry up and get my board exam so I can start working once I graduate. These are kind of like your A players, your doers, you know, they're just like, I just wanna get it done and get it out of the way. The ones in January are gonna say like, well, I'm gonna wait to graduate and then I'm gonna take my board exam. So just understand this to split the uprights. Most students are gonna graduate sometime in December. So what's gonna happen here is they're gonna take their board exam in October, and then they have to wait until December, and then they could go ahead and start working in January, okay? These students are gonna take their board exam in January, and then they could go ahead and start working in February, okay? So really, really good to keep that in mind is that like, just because there's gonna be a hiring season here in October, November, December, they can't start working until January or February. Most people, what they do is they wait until January and February to try to hire. But what you really should be doing is starting to put your ads up in October through December 1st, and then that way you're attracting these students here that are gonna be looking for jobs so that they can start working once they graduate. Really, really key. Now, as far as April goes, so if we're looking at this again, 20% is gonna take their board exam in April, 80% is gonna take their board exam in July. So for April, typically, these students are gonna either graduate in May or they're going to graduate in June. So if they take their board exam in April and they graduate in May, they could usually start working in the end of May or June. These students here are gonna take their board exam in April, or they're gonna then graduate in June, and then they can usually start working in the end of June or early July, okay? So really, really key to understand that information. Then you're gonna have students that are gonna graduate in May or June. They're gonna take their board exam in July, and then once they get their license, MPI credentialing, they could typically start in August, okay? So a lot of owners right now are going to be looking at, hey, these students are taking their board exam in the spring, so either April or July, and then this is when it's going to be, hey, when can they actually start working? So the reason why we mention this, if we're looking at the board here, we just need to understand that there's a couple times throughout the year that make sense for hiring. Now, if we take this information and we typically look at historically our trends, we know that the fall is usually increase in visits. We know typically the winter starts to have a decrease depending on where you are in the States, right? We usually know that the spring is going to be increased. So spring is usually gonna be up, and then the summer is usually, so I'm running out of room here, summer is usually down. Now, for some of you guys that live in the South, you know, fall is good, but then the winter sometimes goes up. because you got all these snowbirds coming down for the winter time. So the winter is usually busier. The spring, they start to come back up north. So this usually is down. And then the summer, they usually go back up to the north. So everybody has different trends, so know your trends. But one of the biggest things that we're looking at here is when does it make sense to start hiring? And when you're looking at this, the biggest thing to understand is when October all the way up until December is the first hiring season. Okay, the second hiring season typically occurs right after graduation, which is going to be between December and January. This is also another good time to hire, but just know that this first one here, there's not a lot of students coming through, right? Not a lot of people are applying. This one is the bigger hiring season between Christmas and New Year's, or Christmas and test date, which is the end of January. End of January. That's one of the bigger test dates, okay? That's when a lot of these students are gonna be looking for a job, right between December and January. Now there is a little pocket here. People are gonna take their board exam, wait till they pass and then look for a grade, but you're gonna miss the boat if that's the case. Or look for a job, not a grade. But this is the hiring season right there, between December and January. Now, over here, we typically see another hiring season, which ultimately occurs right in March. People are gonna start looking for jobs, March and April. Then they're gonna take their board exam, and then the next hiring season is between May. So we have a nice hiring season here. This is the big hiring season between May and August 15th. That is the main hiring season for the year. Is between May 15th all the way up until August 15th. Now, the problem is most people, their clinics usually see less volume during the summer, so they don't pull the trigger and hire during the summer. They wait until the fall, okay? So they're gonna come over here and they're gonna wait till the fall to hire, but then that's going to be a problem. Usually when people are the end of August, September, October, and then even November, when you try to hire during this season here, this is where you're gonna have increase in salaries, right? This is where you're gonna have increase in benefits. And then this is where you're gonna have to deal with sign-on bonuses, SOB. So there you go. You gotta deal with all of that stuff here. And what happens is, we see a lot of practice owners, what happens is they become over-leveraged when they're hiring outside of a hiring season. So with that being said, make sure you guys are putting inside of your planning when these students are going to be graduating. And again, remember that there are going to be hiring seasons in the fall and the spring, and don't get caught between seasons or else you're gonna become over leveraged in your salary. So if you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit the follow button and subscribe to our channel, and click the link inside of our description and go ahead and schedule a call with our team, and we look forward to helping you.